Този изкуствен интелект може да чете мисли. Той може да разбере вашите мозъчни дейности точно както чат GPT разбира естествените езици на хората.
On the campus of the National University of Singapore, Professor Helen Zhao and a team of researchers say artificial intelligence is letting them see, well, a version of our thoughts. This subject demonstrated the process.
Our colleague, Eric, right now is inside the scanner.
Using a database of fMRI scans, the AI first got to see what people's brains looked like as they viewed more than 1,000 photos. Then, it was shown only brain scans as the subjects looked at new photos. Using a special language of brain activity the team developed, an image generator called Stable Diffusion then tried to recreate what each new photo had shown.
Wow, so as long as I have seen it and you know the patterns of my brain, then the AI will read that out of my brain.
Yes, exactly.
Scientists have pursued this for years, but AI makes the difference. Here's a giraffe shown to a subject. Now, ready? Here's the image the AI created. And it is sometimes very different between people. Here's the original image of a grassy field. Now here's 3 different versions generated from 3 different people's brain activity.
So unless you have taken a long time to train the model on an individual, it doesn't work.
Yes, at least at this stage, but we're trying to generalize across subjects in the future.
People have been dreaming about reading minds for ages. Psychics, magicians, mentalists, employing all kinds of fakery to get attention.
Alam Alasambra.
Mind reading is no longer a fantasy. We can actually do that now, and the secret sauce is artificial intelligence.
New research shows that the tech can help read people's private thoughts.
Researchers have used AI to translate brain scans into text and turn it into what looks like inner dialogue.
I worry that there's a future that we're just not ready for.
This is an image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen, and this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing. Yeah. So our thoughts are starting to be decoded.
Welcome to the fascinating and slightly scary world of brain-computer interfaces. Of course, when we're talking about getting into people's heads, there's always the straightforward way. Measuring brain activity directly, with electrodes put under the skin or skull, is much more efficient. These BCIs are labeled as invasive, and while they require surgery, the results they demonstrate are by far the most impressive.
We're basically using a computer to read Keith's thoughts and then translate that into a machine that then stimulates his hand.
People have been able to control limbs, feel touch, and manipulate objects in virtual space, all thanks to the skull no longer blocking their brainwaves. Elon Musk's Neuralink, probably the best-known BCI startup, is also banking on the invasive technology.
Ще имаме ли скоро дигитални лични карти? В страната ще бъдат въведени дигитални идентификационни номера, заедно с Маиша Намба, система от пожизнени персонални идентификационни номера, присвоени на кенийските граждани при регистрация.
And ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo says his ministry will complete the full rollout of the digital identity card by February next year, which will allow Kenyans to access government services. Speaking during the annual Digital Connect Summit breakfast, the CS added that the digital ID will enhance efficiency of services like health, national security, and tax collection. The Connect conference themed the digital economy, endless opportunities shaping the future, will be hosted by the ICT Authority in collaboration with players in the ICT sector.
We don't need Kenyans to visit government offices physically flashing an identity card to consume good government services. Once we onboard the government services on technological platforms, Kenyans should be able to transact business with government from the comfort of wherever they are. And this is why we are introducing this digital identity into that space.
Ще имаме ли дигитални лични карти в България?
You're probably wondering when digital ID will be coming to your country. Well, it looks like almost every country will have a national digital ID by 2025. This is the timeline given by the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP, in a report it published in February this year. The report is titled, quote, Digital Strategy 2022 to 2025. For starters, the report reveals that the UNDP's digital strategy was first announced in mid-2019, almost exactly when the WEF signed its partnership with the UN. The report also repeatedly states that the pandemic accelerated the development of digital ID around the world.
Потенциални опасности.
The bigger picture is that digital ID, especially large state-run centralized systems, have the potential to be a vehicle for enormous control. We go from operating on broadly a trust-based system in lots of scenarios, or having certain bits of paper ID, to being nations of people who walk around on license with a digital identifier that gives you certain rights and permissions. You know, I'm uncomfortable, for example, and Julie describes that the first step in dating might be to check someone's papers. That's a kind of nightmare citizen policing future that I really hope that we don't live in. And of course, you know, there's an enormous scope for function creep here, what's called mission creep, where you start with something that's just about showing you're over 18 to buy a bottle of wine, and then suddenly it becomes a digital ID that has all kinds of permissions.
Роботи и изкуствен интелект ще ни заместят скоро. Създателите на Digit, двукрак робот с човешки размери, също така и с очи, създават първата в света фабрика за хуманоидни роботи в Орегон, креативно наречена RoboFab. Това е хуманоидният робот Digit.
Another day, another story about humanoid robots, but this time, they're building a huge factory to make a whole mess of them. Agility Robotics yesterday announced plans to open RoboFab, a robot manufacturing facility in Salem, Oregon. The company behind the bipedal Digit isn't just making a few of these things. They plan to produce more than 10,000 robots per year. So, let's see, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, we'll have 2.1 million unfilled jobs by 2030. I don't think we're gonna make it. Agility recently demonstrated Digit's capabilities in March, when it showed a fleet of the latest generation of humanoid bots capable of switching between various tasks in a warehouse. Digit is designed for logistics work, performing bulk material handling tasks in warehouses and distribution centers. Digit's new home in Salem will initially have a 70,000 square foot footprint, and the company plans to walk at least a few hundred digits off the line in the first year. Once the factory is up and running at full capacity, the company will require some 500 new workers in Salem, as well as the demand for new employees at Agility's other locations in Palo Alto, California, and Pittsburgh. What's more, Agility doesn't just plan to make these things, but employ them as well for moving, loading, and unloading totes at the new factory. Skeptics often wonder, why does my cobot need to be a humanoid? Well, Agility says the design is to enable the multi-purpose utility and work safely in spaces designed for people. According to the company, partners who participate in Agility's early adopter partner program will have first dibs on Digit, with deliveries beginning in 2024. The partners will help Agility shape Digit's development and capabilities based on real-world use cases. These partners will get some special attention, including on-site visits and dedicated engineering resources. The rest of the world can get its hands on Digit come 2025. Agility Robotics co-founder and CEO Damien Shelton says Digit was built to solve the problems of today's workforce, like injuries, burnout, high turnover, and unfillable labor gaps. According to Shelton, his quote, ultimate vision is to enable humans to be more human.
Ще ни заместят ли изкуствения интелект и роботите, или ще работим съвместно?
Do you think that it's likely that we will merge somehow or another with this sort of technology and it'll augment what we are now? Or do you think it will replace us?
Well, that's the scenario. The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best. Like
for us.
Yes. Like if you can't beat it, join it. That's
Yeah.
You know, so from a long-term existential standpoint, that's like the purpose of Neuralink, is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI, because we have a bandwidth problem. You just can't communicate through microsystems.
Германия има проблем. Нарастващият брой мигранти и бежанци и ниският брой депортации се превърнаха в основен политически проблем в Германия. Германия е приела повече от 1 милион украински бежанци. Освен това, около 244 хиляди души от други страни са подали молба за убежище миналата година. Тази година този брой може да нарасне до 300 хиляди.
Germany's cabinet has approved a new legislation that could make it easier to deport undocumented immigrants and unsuccessful asylum seekers. The move comes as the country's shelters have been filling up in recent months due to a large number of asylum seekers and more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees. The bill will now have to go through the Bundestag for final approval. Among other measures, the bill would enable searches for identification documents and remove the obligation to inform people that they could be deported.
Германският полицейски съюз каза: ще отнеме повече от 80 години, за да депортираме около 50 хиляди души, които са принудително депортирани в родните им страни. В същото време още милиони ще са пристигнали вече. Ето как Полша се справя с вълната от емигранти и защо трудно допуска мюсюлмани.
Poland's government has long been proud of its strong stance against migration. While other European nations welcomed in hundreds of thousands of people who'd fled war, Poland stood firm with its borders firmly closed. Warsaw has resisted taking in refugees from Syria, Afghanistan and Eritrea, among others. Over the last few years, more than 2 million foreigners have arrived in Poland. They're mostly Christian from neighboring Ukraine. So, are migrants okay so long as they're not Muslim?
Good evening, Imran. Thank you for having me. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Islamophobia. It's all about safety. As I said previously, everyone is allowed to apply. Everyone is allowed to submit the documents, ask for a permission, ask for a visa, and then our interior minister will decide if he's needed for our society. The difference between immigration and refugees as a legal difference. You are mixing words. It's very important because the difference is quite big. First of all, refugee is the person who flees to the first safe country by the international law. Immigrant, especially illegal immigrant, is not welcome in Poland. This is what we promised, and these words will be kept. Basically, we are not talking about people who are in need. We are not talking about Muslims. We are talking about a law, international law and Polish law. In Germany, over 200,000 of so-called refugees just vanished, disappeared. Nobody knows who are they, where are they, and what are they going to do. Nobody knows. 200,000 people. Can you imagine how many people is that? It's just crazy. So this quota system, which is offered by Germany, failed, as we know. And this is against our safety in Europe. This is very huge issue. First of all, I'm talking about the terrorist attacks committed by radical Islamists. I couldn't hear very strong words from imams who would condemn this kind of attacks. That's number one. Rapes in Sweden, hidden for 13 months. I'm talking about the youth festival where girls were raped by illegal Muslim migration immigrants.
And if I have to look at the biggest terrorist attack that has captured the international imagination in recent times, the Christchurch mosque attack or mosque attacks, right? Carried out by someone calling himself a Christian, right? So is there then a safety problem with Christian migrants such as the Ukrainians?
No. First of all, the man in Christchurch was not a migrant. I think he should spend his whole life in jail. And as I said, the whole world, Western world, condemned that. I couldn't hear condemnation from the Saudi Arabia or other Sharia law states after many terrorist attacks in Sweden, where we have Malmö and other places where police is afraid to get in.
Това възможен край на долара ли е? Руски политик съобщи огромна новина, като потвърди, че валутата на БРИКС вече е в процес на разработка. Той потвърди, че новата валута на БРИКС е почти готова за пускане и се нуждае от фина настройка преди пускането й. Икономистът добави: за да пуснем тази валута се нуждаем от политическото съгласие на страните от БРИКС. 3 от тях вече изразиха подкрепата си за идеята за въвеждане на нова валута чрез своите държавни глави.
Periodically, talk of ways to reduce or eliminate dependence on the US dollar pop up in varied economies globally. The latest comes from the BRICS nations, who have announced their intention to create a gold-backed BRICS currency. BRICS is the acronym for a group of countries started in 2010 by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The alliance expects to expand its membership soon, with over 20 countries formally asking to join BRICS, making the group economically formidable. However, the stability, confidence, and economic dominance of the dollar are unmatched in history. The United States has a solid legal and institutional framework that fosters trust and confidence in the dollar. The U.S. has the world's deepest and most liquid financial markets, allowing nations to hold and transact large amounts of U.S. dollars with minimal impact on the dollar's value. Transitioning from the dollar to another reserve currency would be long, complex, and risky. It would require a consensus among many nations and could lead to economic instability during any transition.